Hi, my name is Caleb, and I'm a bachelor student about to graduate with my bachelor's degree at Weber State University. And I want to make a quick video just kind of showcasing important things I've learned throughout my computer science schooling that I think would be helpful for any newer CS students who are trying to get into this field or pursue this degree. So just for a little bit of background, graduated in 2019. Started out in Utah State to Slick before finally settling at Weber State. And with this, I kind of want to make a shout out to Slick because their early program for computer science students was very helpful. I actually ended up going to the Utah State Extension in Twilla, and that they didn't end up having the the courses I needed in order to start pursuing a computer science degree. So I went over to Slick instead, and I think the stuff they offered me was great, and got my associates there, and went to Weber State after that to finish out a bachelor's. So, starting in my CS journey in high school, I did some um, classes at a community learning center, and they started me out with Java and Python, and specifically Java was my very first language, and I worked in the Eclipse IDE, that was the only time I ever used it. I think it was they were just trying to introduce you to the concepts and get you in the door with computer science. Um, and I guess this isn't a concept I'll be covering, but one thing that I should stress is to start early and learn as much as you can with that. Um, if I didn't do that stuff in high school, I'd probably be much worse off right now. And it also allowed me to kind of get a head start on my college stuff. So I kind of just breezed through, or didn't even have to take the very early CS classes. So if you can do that stuff in high school, I say go for it. Um, and throughout my schooling, I've learned several languages, settling into more full stack work. Um, and right now, I would say the main stuff I work on is C sharp stuff in Visual Studio, which is my IDE. And projects I've worked on include various command line based programs that's mainly what they'll give you early on to get you in the door. And this led into more complicated programs such as various websites. Worked on like a few portfolios and other programs, and specifically naming ones that I worked on in the WPF system that they have in Visual Studio. I worked on an inventory system with that and an airline reservation system. So in this video, I want to cover broad concepts that I think would be very helpful to talk out and keep in mind for early students and even later students who might need a reminder if they're ever struggling or just need kind of to more focus on one thing as they're being schooled and stuff like that. I think these three basic concepts are very important and helpful, at least to me. So I want to cover problem solving, teamwork and communication, and maintaining yourself and realistic expectations. And I want to cover each of these concepts about 4 to 5 minutes each. So I'm going to start with problem solving. So first bullet point I have here, just math, math, math. I think as I've grown up, I have learned that math is very important, especially for computer science. There's a reason they, have you take it, and I honestly think you should probably take more than what you're required to. Math is, I think, is the best way to increase your problem solving skills, and the main reason why this broad concept is called problem solving. The way you get better at it is through math, or I think it's the best way at least. Um, I think math is a core reason and core skill to help you increase your problem solving skills. And even if I think a lot of reasons why people don't like math is they don't think it's very applicable. Um, but even if specific problems like you'll see in more advanced calculus and whatnot, even if you're not going to see that every single day of your life, even in the CS degree, which does deal with math, it kind of builds up your brain to help you understand problems, and problem solving is probably the most important part of computer science as a whole. So, and then going further, the baseline understanding of CS principles. So, I like to think of like your if statements, your for loops, uh, any of these basic concepts in programming as a whole. Um, these exist in every language. The thing with computer science is the you should spend a lot of time with these baseline CS principles because that will carry you through so many languages. Speaking from experience through my schooling, I've had to switch up languages a lot. I've had to go from, like I stated before, went from Java to Python to C to some more, to even assembly to more bare bones stuff. Uh, and right now I mostly work in C sharp. Um, these languages, I feel like as you're starting out, having to learn different programming languages, this daunting task in your head. But honestly, they all have the same core principles, and it's all problem solving, and it's all understanding. Like I said, your if statements, your for loops, your at least your not all languages are object oriented, but object oriented concepts are usually what they'll start you off with, and just those will help you so much in any language you decide to do. And I think it would, no matter what job you'll go end up going into or whatever they need you to do, the baseline understanding of CS principles and just how you make the program, what you're doing to the computer as you're writing this program, just understanding that can take you so far. And then different areas of problem solving, because I wanted to talk about how that not everything is just code. Throughout school, there were a few times where I had a lapse in coding. I didn't write programs for a long time to more focus on concepts and presentation. I specifically for presentation, I want to thank the software engineering courses at Weber State. Those focused really heavily on how the things you'll run into in the computer science workforce. So you learn a lot about like, okay, how do we get our program ready to present to a board, to our bosses, to our project manager, and how you can correctly make your what, because you're essentially just selling your program, and like how do you present that to people to make them want to use what you're building, right? And that also leads into planning, but that also planning is also important for starting your coding. You got to make pseudocode, you got to draw diagrams so that you can better structure your program when you're actually building it. That's problem solving. Oh, teamwork and communication. So if you're going into CS, you have to understand that teamwork is such an important aspect of it. Every semester that I've taken, if I wasn't covering core concepts, like if I wasn't learning, uh, if I wasn't doing a math or anything that kind of required you to understand the more basic concepts of computer science by your lonesome, you are working in a team. If you're building something, you're working in a team. Uh, and I can't stress enough how important communication is when you're working in a team. Uh, Communicate early and often. Be clear about your own strengths and weaknesses. So just be clear about what you know, and as you go into stuff, just don't weigh too heavily on yourself when you're working on projects. You know, try to get to know your team and tell them what you're best at, tell them what you're worst at, and then your team can basically work it itself out in a more timely manner and in a more efficient manner. And when you're in these groups, I'd just say expect frustrations throughout different groups, and especially as it pertains to school group work. Speaking from experience, school group work can be very frustrating, and compared to the workforce, college or high school students, they're not going to be as motivated, and I feel like that's just something you should expect. It's not something that I think can be easily fixed. Just with work group work, you are paid to be there and you have something to lose. And not to say you don't have something to lose with school group work, but there definitely is less of a urgency and motivation with school groups. Just do your best. Like I said, communicate early and often, and try not to get too upset with your team members. Just like, understand that everyone's human and work out how you can, and get ahead of it. People will look at you better for it, and if you're a good team member, that will also take you so far in this degree and in this workforce. Going forward with that, with maintaining yourself and having realistic expectations. So something you should do as early as possible, and they tried to get me to do this as early as high school. Maintain a portfolio and learn how to use GitHub as soon as possible. These tools are going to be so helpful for you later on. I want to talk about specifically my lapse in use of GitHub. So they kind of taught me how to use it early on in high school, and we used it to publish our programs into our profiles. And then as I went forward through college, it wasn't being required later on. But I can't stress enough how you should put as many things as possible into your GitHub portfolio. Uh, when you eventually need to get a job in CS, they will look at that. They will look at how much you've put in, how long you've been doing it for, and the more the better. And even better is, and GitHub's just an easy tool. I would start with that. But if you can use some service to kind of display your work to a more broad audience, because if you're working for a job, people can look at your GitHub and look at the code and download it and run it and see what it's about. But it also helps to have a broad portfolio that people can just see. Put videos in there of your program working. Write out your experiences with certain projects and how you got to where you are. This is all just very important stuff for getting jobs down the line and just getting ahead of competition, because that's really all it is proving your worth. And these two things are very important. Look into trying to create a portfolio website. I know some services will make it for you. Like, you don't even have to necessarily make your own website. But yes, this first, I wanted to sit here and talk about this first point because I think it's very important, and you will thank yourself for it later on. Moving on, always keep physical and mental health in mind. I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting in front of my computer screen, just staring at my code and just wondering what I'm doing wrong. And it leads to frustration, and I just want to sit there and I want to figure it, not move until I figure it out. But you need to, get enough sleep, eat enough, drink enough water. You have to, this is kind of getting into the process or into the realm of, just being healthy, but it is, you got to think about how your body functions and how you perform these tasks and how you solve these problems. Is you use your brain, and you need to do what you can to keep your brain as healthy as possible, keep your focus as good as possible, and the more you can do that, the better you will be in this field. Oh, whoops. I'm going to go back a bit. I accidentally kept going. Need to cover this last one, which it's kind of similar to the second point, but just expect to need help, and expect to need to learn and relearn frequently. I got to cover a big part of coding is using internet resources, going to Stack Overflow and just seeing how other people solve problems and how you can incorporate it into your own problem solving. I think that's a very big part of the job. I don't know if, I don't feel like you're ever dissuaded from going out there and doing research and learning how to do things, because that's part of the job. And I think you are going to have to do that eventually anyway. So just don't. The point is to this one is don't sit there and be like, well, I have to learn how to figure this out by my lonesome. I have to, be smart enough to figure this out on my own. But expect to need help. Don't be too proud. And specifically with relearning, as someone who almost has my bachelor's degree, I can admit firsthand that I've frequently had to go back and learn the proper syntax to write a for loop. I use for loops all the time in my code, and sometimes you just forget and you need to relearn it. There's no shame in that, and you should do it and expect to do it. So that's really all I wanted to cover. Thank you for watching, and good luck in your endeavors, and make some good programs.